It is a challenge to pull him from it. Can you go with me to the store without the device? Because not only does he have the iPad, he has the Switch, and then he has my phone. Can I see your phone? It's always something.
Okay, Parker, 5 minutes. Okay, maybe just a few more minutes. I said 5 minutes. So I come down after 5 minutes. Okay, Mom, just a few more minutes. I gotta do a few more things. A few more minutes. And then finally he'll click off with his friends, and then jump off of the couch and tell me what a terrible parent I am.
I think that I am trustworthy enough to put it down when I need to, but some people think otherwise.
Hi, I'm Delaney Ruston, practicing physician and the creator of the 4 Screenagers movies, and this is the Screenagers podcast. You just heard some sound bites from the new Screenagers film that just released this month called Screenagers Elementary School Edition. A lot of work went into making this film, and I'm just so excited that we've released it now. The timing couldn't be better. It's a film for parents of elementary age kids, for kids themselves, for teachers, and for all stakeholders in children's lives. It has cutting-edge research told by experts such as Jonathan Haidt, Peggy Orenstein, and many others. Some parts from the original Screenagers are in this film, such as my family's story. And in this film, I share what I would have done differently. Some other parts of the original film are in this one, but the majority of the film is comprised of news stories and experts, and the film is filled with solutions. Today, I share a few of the many parenting solutions in the film, and I will expand on these solutions in the podcast as well. The first one has to do with the all too common scenario of kids having meltdowns when it's time for screens to be turned off and put away, be it an iPad or a video game. Here's a clip from the child psychologist Lizz Dexter-Mazza as she explains what is happening in the brain for kids who are having these meltdowns.
It's really common for kids to sometimes have a meltdown when they have to get off their screens, their video games. Extended amounts of screen time can tire out their brains, their prefrontal cortex, opening up neural pathways for their emotion mind to take over. And then if they have a tantrum and then the parents give in, we've now reinforced that high intense emotional display. If this time we're no longer going to extend the amount of time, that's when tantrums get louder. That's called an extinction burst. The brain starts to think, oh, they didn't hear me. I need to get louder. That louder is the extinction burst.
So what to do?
As adults, we have to use our own distress tolerance skills until the brain knows that no matter how loud I'm going to be, that I'm not going to get the thing I'm wanting.
Doing the ongoing work as parents, regulating how we respond to meltdowns, recognizing our emotions are being heightened, and then that work to stay calm and committed to not giving in. I really like that it puts the focus on us in those moments, us adults, lessening the focus and irritation that we can have for our kids when they're, screaming and freaking out and crying. Staying on track and not giving in is really important, of course. And what researchers have found, experience shows, is that it usually takes a week or maybe up to 2 weeks for the child to really not have the same intense emotional reactions, to not keep begging for and having the meltdowns. Without the reinforcement of giving in, we animals, we don't just keep doing the same thing over and over. And so it can take longer, and it's obviously not just a linear process. And kids are going to have fits and cry about all sorts of things. And I want to add that we aren't going to be 100% consistent, but we can make progress, and our kids will make progress when we don't give in to the crying and the begging. Though I really want to be sure to say that some kids are going to just have ongoing meltdowns. It's going to be a big issue, and it's so important that parents get help in these situations. Seeing a doctor, there could be some different psychological issues happening, seeing a counselor, and of course, talking with friends who have older children. Think about the school counselor and teachers. The next parent solution has to do with a parenting strategy that I'm really happy to finally get into one of the films. And you're going to hear a clip in which on the screen you're seeing my daughter Tessa and I, who was 13 at this time, as we're sitting on a couch. And this moment in the film comes at the end of this section on social media.
Social media is complicated. Even group chats. Texting can get complicated. What is clear is that I want my kids to know that they can talk with us and we won't reflexively take away their devices. I call this safety first.
We have texts that are well thought out, that are really nice, and I've had more conversations about how I feel, like very, very honest.
I've been sharing with parents I work with, be it parents of kids I'm seeing in my medical practice or parents at schools and other places, this idea of safety first for a long time. It's such a critical step. And I'm talking to parents of younger kids about this, tweens and teens, just how important it is to say to our kids and continually say this at different times, just in little moments here and there, things like, hey, I just want you to know that what's most important to me is that you feel like you can come and talk to me about hard things that happen online, inappropriate stuff that you might see, conversations, meanness. And I'm not about reflexively taking away your devices, but rather helping you work out how to handle all this. So I think saying things like that at different moments is a really strategic communication method we can employ as parents. And I want to add, because you might be thinking to yourself, wait a sec, I don't want to promise that I'm never going to take away their privilege of having a phone, because it is a privilege, it's not a right, or whatever the device is that some bad situation happened on. And I think that here's a couple sentences that can be helpful. I can't promise there won't be tech pauses or whatnot if for serious safety reasons that is needed, but that is not at all my goal. My goal is really to be a resource in handling all of the complexities and real life risks that online life has. So that idea of a pause can be something that you say to your kids. And now let's move to a third clip in the film. And this has to do with the fact that media is filled with lots of violence, aggression, characters being mean and handling things through fighting. And of course, all these video games have lots of variations of combat or fighting or aggression. And even if kids are young, there are plenty of shows and games that aggression is a big part of it. And when we're playing such games with our kids or watching shows with this type of content, what has the research told us about how best to mitigate the negative effects of these types of media? And one example of what happens when kids see a lot of this content is something called negative attribution bias. For example, let's say a kid gets bumped in the hall by another kid. Well, the child who's been watching a lot of these type of media are more likely, research shows, to think that a kid did that on purpose rather than an accident. That is what negative attribution bias is. So how do we do things as adults in kids' lives to help mitigate that reality? And so in the film, you're going to hear now a clip from longtime media researcher, psychologist Doug Gentile, who has a lab at Iowa State University, talking about co-viewing, meaning when we just sit and watch or play with our kids versus another way of engaging.
Co-playing actually increases the negative effects. You're silently giving your approval to whatever is being seen on the screen. But the one that has profoundly beneficial effects is active mediation. This is where you have discussions, but if parents do it, they usually do really low quality. They give their opinions. I don't like that. The best active mediation is done with questions. What would be the best way to handle a situation like this? What would be the worst way? And whose point of view is being shown? Whose point of view isn't being shown? Critical reasoning.
You know, I want to say something that when I was in Iowa filming Doug, Afterwards, a cinematographer who has 9-year-old twin boys said that hearing Douglas talk about this concept of mediation, active mediation, rather than co-viewing and sitting silently, was one of the big takeaways that he got from the interview. And he said, absolutely, he's going to start doing such a better job of that, which I always love hearing what the camera people that I'm working with, if I'm not filming myself, if I have someone with me filming, the crew, sound people, whoever, like, what did you really like from that interview? What stuck with you? So I wanted to add that. For me, it was a great framing of it too, that mediation, really remembering as a parent to ask questions. And it doesn't mean that we can't or shouldn't give our opinions, because absolutely we can, but just getting more in the habit of asking our kids to generate and speak about their opinions really builds this critical thinking in them. This actually all reminds me of my work as a doctor to teens and using a practice called motivational interviewing. So let's say I have a teen who uses e-cigarettes and I want to start talking about this with them. I usually start just by saying, what do you like about it? Because I don't want them to be defensive that I'm going to attack them for this practice. And I nod as they talk, and sometimes they'll say, yeah, I hear that from other teens who are using nicotine. And then I ask them about things that they don't really like about it, or they'd want to change, or what they're not happy about with their habit. And what we know from the data is that saying these negative things out loud neuropsychologically is particularly impactful in contributing to potentially trying to quit. That act of saying things out loud. Well, we're getting to the end, and I just want to say that the new film, Screenagers Elementary School Age Edition, has so much more in it. For example, the rise in the number of kids wearing smartwatches to schools, and what are solutions for that? Yes, you guessed it, Away for the Day, which is just gaining traction all over the country. There's lots more in the film, so learn more about it at screenagersmovie.com, as well as the other 3 Screenagers movies. You can get my weekly blog there at the website, and you can search for hundreds of topics that I've covered in podcasts and blogs and other resources that we have on the website.
Thanks for listening today. And please follow the Screenagers podcast, which is the same thing as subscribing. And rate and review it if you have a minute. This really helps spread the word. Meanwhile, we'd love to hear your ideas for future podcast episodes. Email me at Delaney@screenagersmovie.com. This Screenagers podcast episode was produced by me, your host, Delaney Ruston, Lisa Tabb, and our sound editor was Alan Gofinski.